Okay, the fun begins. Alright, this is just your basic standard steel wire hanger. It's not a very heavy gauge. They're not super hard to cut or bend or anything like that. What I've got for cutting them is a set of mini bolt cutters. They weren't very expensive. I think they're like $10 or $12, something like that. You could get away with a pair of wire cutters, but I cut a ton of these. So I went with something a little more rugged. If you're going to plan on doing a lot, I'd go with it myself. But anyway, without further ado, let's get started on this. So when it comes up to this upper area here, you might be tempted to cut around here or even up there, get a little more hanger out of it. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a bit of a pain, especially later on in the process. So what I'm going to recommend you do is cut right around here, just at the base of that curve, right there. That's going to make this a lot easier to straighten the hanger out, and then when you're working with it, the end's not going to be quite so gnarled up, which when you see what we do is going to make a lot of sense. Like, it would be very, very, very brittle on the end if you were straightening out so much in such a short distance. So what we're going to do is just snap it off there, run over here, snap it off there. So you're left with this. Nothing too serious. There's your scrap. Hang on to these. There is a lot of neat little things that I'm going to cover that we can do with these. So just set that to the side, and if you're like me and wind up cutting about 200 of them, you're going to have a massive pile. Now, to straighten this out, if you're going to do, a couple of them, you can do it by hand. Like I said, it bends pretty easy. See there, like it straightens out not too bad at all. Like those, the upper areas here where it's just a shallow little bend are pretty easy to work with. When you get down into this and this tight curve, that's where it gets a little more tricky. So if you're going to do more than one or two and you don't have the iron grip, I would highly recommend a set of pliers. These are long handle pliers, just what I have floating around. I wouldn't necessarily recommend them. The short handle ones would be a lot easier to work with. Now, the easiest way to do this is to bend the bulk of it and just kind of get that little arc out of it so you've got a straight leg and get it to a 90 degree. And it's just quicker to do both sides. If I'm doing a bunch, I'll actually cut all the tops off, and then I'll straighten out this and then throw them to the side, and then I'll spend the time and do these 90s with the pliers. So, the pliers on, like I said, the short handled ones would be a lot easier. But what you want to do is just kind of slowly turn the corner and straighten it, and try to crush it between the flat, and that's going to help take the bend out, and it's going to keep the wire straight instead of kinking. Like if you try to bend that 90 back by hand, you'll notice that there'll be a little bit of a whoop in the wire, and that makes it very hard to work with later on because it's not straight and it's not going to bend right there. And especially if you try to braid it in. See, with the pliers we were able to get it pretty reasonable. But if you do it by hand, which I'll show you here, it's extremely difficult because you got to kind of get your thumbs on it and then push, and the wire tries to spin and flip and carry on, so it's quite a fight. But you end up with something like this. You got a little bit of a crook right here where the thing was. Now you can fight with it by hand and get most of that out, but it's extremely time consuming and it still just doesn't work quite as well.